Welcome to this explainer. Okay, to kick things off, I want you to do a quick mental exercise with me right now. I want you to vividly imagine walking into an ancient human camp, let's say about 30,000 years ago. You step past the warm glow of the fire, you hear the sounds of voices chattering, but almost immediately, something feels incredibly wrong. Not necessarily dangerous, just off.
You look around this imaginary camp and you start asking yourself, wait, where is everybody? Or more specifically, where are all the older people? Because you see kids chasing each other around. You've got young parents carrying babies, teenagers working and practicing their survival skills. But the whole camp feels incredibly young, like way younger than literally any town or city you're familiar with today. And honestly, that missing demographic, it seems to make perfect sense, because we've all heard this famous number, right? 30. You've probably heard this statistic repeated a million times, that ancient humans died before they turned 30, or, maybe 25. The core message is always that ancient life was just brutally short, and people basically expired the moment they hit adulthood. But here's the totally fascinating twist. That statistic is actually mathematically true, while simultaneously being incredibly misleading.
All right, let's dive right into part one, a daily fight for survival and why this myth feels so incredibly true.
To really understand why this myth is just so believable, we first have to admit that ancient life truly was a brutal, relentless, daily grind. I mean, there were no grocery stores or pharmacies waiting for you. Just think about a simple modern reality for a second. If you slice your hand chopping vegetables for dinner today, it's annoying, you wash it, slap a little bandage on it, and honestly, a week later you completely forget it ever happened. But jump back 30,000 years ago, without antibiotics, that exact same little cut could start a terrifying countdown. The wound gets infected, a fever starts up, and nobody has a clue why it's happening or how to stop it. Without modern medicine, simple, everyday infections wiped out absolutely enormous numbers of people.
And honestly, a simple cut was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, just look at these overwhelming daily threats. If a hunt failed for a couple of days, starvation set in really fast. And even when hunts succeeded, the animals fought back. Archaeologists are constantly digging up ancient skeletons with severe, healed bone fractures from boars or deer. And remember, we definitely weren't at the top of the food chain back then. Humans spent hundreds of thousands of years being actively hunted by lions, wolves, and crocodiles. Plus, because of our amazingly large brains, childbirth was easily one of the riskiest, most perilous moments in a human's life, for both the mother and the baby.
Which actually brings up something really cool that you experienced today. Have you ever wondered why you just instinctively flinch at spiders or snakes or pitch-black darkness? There's this brilliant scientific theory that these innate fears aren't random at all. They're actually an ancestral survival memory, literally encoded right into your DNA across thousands and thousands of generations of ancestors. Ancestors who had to learn those exact fears the hard way, just to survive the night.
But okay, here is the major twist. To see why they weren't all just dropping dead at 30, we have to look at part 2, the trap of the average. This is basically a mathematical illusion.
Let's break down the math here, because ancient humans were absolutely not expiring the second they blew out the candles on their 30th birthday. Imagine a theoretical little village with exactly 10 children. Because of all those intense dangers we just talked about, a totally tragic 50% of them die before their second birthday. But the other 5, they survive the gauntlet, and they go on to live to be 60 years old.
So, what's the catch? Well, if you average those numbers out, 5 toddlers dying at age 1 and 5 adults living all the way to age 60, what is the average lifespan of that entire village? Boom, it's exactly 31. But think about that for a second. Absolutely nobody in that village actually died at 31. Half died as toddlers and half became senior citizens. This is the massive trap hidden inside ancient life expectancy numbers. The average includes everyone, and childhood was just incredibly, devastatingly dangerous.
To really grasp this, as a real gut punch of a reality, let's just do a quick mental simulation. Picture a modern elementary school classroom, right? About 30 kids sitting at their desks. Now mentally, just erase 50% of them. 15 kids, gone. Not because they moved to a different district, but because they didn't survive. That staggering childhood mortality rate, which was sometimes up to a half or a third of all kids, that was the brutal, everyday reality for the vast majority of human history.
Yet despite this constant, unimaginable tragedy of losing children, families and communities adapted. They had to. Parents fully knew the harsh risks, but life didn't just stop. People still laughed around the campfire, they still fell in love, and they absolutely still made plans for the future. Humans are just remarkably adaptable. even when surrounded by the most profound uncertainty. Which naturally brings us to part 3, the human library and the real truth about ancient elders.
See, if you did manage to survive those terrifying early years, your immune system gained a ton of experience. You figured out where to find food and exactly which mistakes were the fatal ones. Reaching your 50s or 60s, it wasn't an anomaly at all, and it meant something deeply profound for the whole group. An elder wasn't just, an older person taking it easy. They were a library. Think about it. There were absolutely no books, no printed maps, no digital records, no hard drives. Every single thing humanity knew about surviving existed in exactly one place: human memory. So old age definitely wasn't some burden that ancient societies had to manage. It was literally their ultimate survival tool. Just look at the immense value elders brought to the table. When a devastating once-in-a-generation drought hit, the young people wouldn't have a clue what to do. But an elder? They remembered the last drought from 40 years ago. They knew exactly where the hidden water sources were. They knew which weird-looking plants were actually safe to eat. In fact, a lot of scientists believe grandparents helped humans evolve our unusually long lifespans specifically because their gathered knowledge and all the childcare they provided drastically increased the odds of the younger generation actually surviving.
Okay, so let's bring this all back to the present with part 4, the real human triumph, and how we need to totally redefine modern progress.
Those ancient camps we imagined earlier, they weren't totally devoid of the elderly. They were absolutely there, carrying decades of memories and quietly guiding their people. And this is the absolute core takeaway of today's explainer. The big tragedy of ancient life wasn't people magically dropping dead at 30. The tragedy was never reaching 30 in the first place. There was no biological kill switch making humans expire in their prime. What dragged that average number down so drastically was simply the brutal, terrifying difficulty of making it to adulthood.
So when we sit around and talk about human progress, we almost always point to, gleaming skyscrapers, jet airplanes, and supercomputers. But the true modern miracles, they're clean drinking water, they're vaccines and antibiotics, safer childbirth in hospitals, heck, basic underground sewage systems. These unbelievable achievements didn't just magically invent old age out of thin air. Old age was always biologically, genetically possible for us. What these public health miracles actually did was finally stop that massive historical wave of childhood deaths.
They basically just made it far, far more likely for an average newborn to actually experience the long life their biology was already fully capable of. For almost the entirety of human history, the greatest challenge wasn't living to be 80, it was just surviving long enough to get the opportunity to try. Take a second to really let that sink in. Every single person watching this explainer right now is alive today only because countless generations of your ancestors somehow successfully navigated those brutal, impossible odds. It is an absolute marvel that any of us are here at all. But it does make you wonder, with our modern, comfortable lifespans totally secured, what deep ancestral wisdom are we at risk of completely forgetting today? Keep asking those big questions, keep marveling at our shared history, and I'll